and I'm going to run a persuasion check. And you can answer the question based on how I roll. Okay? So what game is Larian working on next?
The Absolute is more dangerous than you can possibly conceive.
Hi, I'm Sven. I'm the CEO of Larian Studios. I'm here at Digital Dragons 24. We came from a background where we didn't do any cinematics. And so basically the voice recording was the last part that needed to be done once the writing was done. And so that meant that we could easily change lines once we figured out how to rapidly do voice recording. When we started doing cinematics, we actually really didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. And we had to learn gradually that cinematics involves lighting, it involves performance capture, and performance direction, and camera placement, and so forth, special effects. There's really a lot of disciplines that come in every single note of cinematic dialogue that needs to be created. And so whenever you made a change in the narrative, or you made a change to make the game better, that had a huge impact on what we call the waterfall downstream, because you started at where the script was, and then you had all these disciplines that needed to work with one another, and that could go really, really, really far. So for instance, if we said, oh, this is going to be a kissing scene, but there was a gnome involved, and he had to deal with a dragonborn, that was quite a complex challenge to solve. And so our tools, our processes were not equipped to deal with this type of repercussions of making a change. And so the thing that we needed to learn is, how do we respect the work of everybody that is involved in this when deciding to make a change? Because we still wanted to be able to make change to make the game better. And it's only when we mastered this that we actually got the beast under control.
Whatever path you choose, I fear it will lead you to the same point, the same enemy.
Well, we tried to make characters that would connect with groups of people. Astarion started out as a row in an Excel file where it said vampire spawn. That was the baseline out of 100 characters. But then you have an entire team that jumps on them. We make our selection. Artists get involved, cinematic designers get involved. Neil obviously got involved. So there's so much stuff that went into that one character. And then we started learning who the character was. So we started growing also. We better understood this is what this character would do in these circumstances. So eventually you got this snowball of character forming, character tweaks that were being done through all of development. And in that sense, it was good that we had a lot of time to create the character. So that is how they came to be. So they started with a certain idea. We just wanted to have a cool angle to a character that would be interesting to play, that sounded interesting. But in the entire development of it, nobody had any idea at the beginning of the game that they're going to turn out that way.
I think I'll enjoy traveling with Halsin. Not for his wit or wisdom. He'll just make an excellent shield if we're attacked.
There's many benefits to early access. It's obviously more challenging because you're suddenly dealing with a live game, and so you have to almost treat it like a live game. But I think first and foremost, it's going to be the player feedback. You are getting both qualitative feedback in the sense that people are telling their opinion about certain things, but you're also getting quantitative feedback because you can measure things. You can see, hey, they're all complaining about this, but actually they mean this, and so I can start doing something about it. So I prefer that. I prefer knowing the mistakes before the major release is going to be, so that we can still fix them. If you're just starting out and you don't have any, or you don't have a lot of reserve cash, it's a source of income that you can spend on making your game better, and the better your game becomes, the higher your chances are going to be in the market. So those, I think, are two of the main advantages of being in early access. Another advantage, which people don't often talk about, is the fact that it actually lets the developers see, hey, people are caring about our game, the thing that we are making. And so it makes it easier to rally developers behind certain causes, but they might not necessarily see as necessary. But once they start hearing a lot of players talk about it, they say, oh yeah, no, actually we should be doing this kind of thing. Here's a bit of content cutting of the feature where the Game Master will be part of the cinematic, which looked really good, by the way. It was just production-wise, it was impossible to do. We already had very high ambitions, but if we were going to add that one on top of it, it would have been, it would have been really, really hard. And here's another bit of content in that context. We actually originally wanted you to pick your Dungeon Master, so you'd have multiple voices. So one of the writers told me that she put something in there that was talking about our next game. And so the interesting thing is that we did the same thing with DOS 2, Divinity Original Sin 2. We put in references to BG3 in there, and nobody found them, at least not that I'm aware. So I'm not sure if people found the one in the reference to our next game in there.
Wow, that's a challenge. That is a challenge for the internet, and we'll see what they come up with.
Baldur's Gate 3 was named after my previous dog, Gustav, who passed away earlier this year. I actually have 2 new puppies, Sunny, and my wife named him, and then Excalibur, who I named. So we have 2 projects in the works, one which is the main one right now, the other one is exploratory, so Sunny is the exploratory one, Excalibur is the big one that we're currently working on. There's a lot of people that get disgusted by the games industry and then leave it. I would say there's always somebody with whom you can align somewhere. The trick is, of course, finding them. So I would certainly say don't close yourself up, but reach out and see what other opportunities there are. Typically when the industry, because I've been around for 28 years, typically the industry, when it goes to its lows, it's also the beginning of its highs. And so if you can find a spot in where it's going upwards, you might actually be in for a much better time than you were before when you were part of the lows. I think the highest point was seeing Divinity Original Sin 1 #1 on the charts, because this was finally a breakthrough after so many years of struggle. So I think that was one of the biggest one. The lowest points was certainly the passing of our team members. So that was definitely the lowest point in the entire history.
I can ask you a question I know you don't want to answer, and I'm going to run a persuasion check.
Oh my
and you
God.
can answer the question based on how I roll. Okay? So what game is Larian working on next? I'll be honest, I was hoping for a nat 20, and that is
I'll
the
answer your
opposite.
question based on your 1.
Sure.
Dentist Simulator.
That couldn't have gone better, really, could it? That couldn't have gone better, really. That's unbelievable. I was rolling over there earlier, like, get the nat 20, come on, get me nat 20. Sven, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that.